running today and gives insights taking into account their technology needs and also the configuration around them, so that we can determine what it would take to move to your destination cloud. So we're talking about moving to Liberty. Open Liberty and WebSphere Liberty are options, and we're able to give the insights of what it means to move it there, give some very detailed reports around any of the considerations that you have, especially when you're going from on-premise to cloud, any of the dependencies and relationships among the other elements that are available in your existing on-premise environment. And then in addition, create the migration artifacts that will accelerate. So as Graham mentioned, developers aren't real keen about learning a new process because what they want to do is pay attention to the logic within their application. We accelerate by creating your configuration and your deployment artifacts to get to your new destination. So your application developers have that leg up. As John had mentioned, the choices along that journey may not be a big leap, but may be a stepwise journey, and Transformation Advisor helps you determine there and supports you along the way, whether it is just operationally deploying your application in WebSphere and containers, or moving to Liberty, which is the ideal runtime environment that Graham was able to demonstrate very nicely. And then the partitioning multiple parts of your application and deploying them independently as microservices. So we also do analyze across all of the Java EE runtimes, but we also analyze MQ and IIB, and as part of Cloud Pak for integration, that is available. That Transformation Advisor is available, so you're able to see relationships, and I'll demonstrate some of that for you. The Transformation Advisor is available in WebSphere Hybrid Edition and Cloud Pak for Apps as a supported product. And recently, we also support the local version of Transformation Advisor as a part of WebSphere Hybrid Edition. So we do have a Linux deployment of Transformation Advisor that's fully supported as well. The functionality is identical between them. And then the reason that I mentioned that is that supported version of TA Local is relatively new, but we have had a trial version of Transformation Advisor that's been available for a while on Windows, Linux, and Mac. So it runs in Docker, using Docker Compose, all the same containers that are running in OpenShift when you deploy via the operator. So let me show you how that works. So you have your runtime environments, all your Java EE workloads, MQ, IIB on-premise. And the first thing that you do is you install Transformation Advisor. I have it installed on my laptop, which is lagging with the streaming. So we'll work a little bit on that, hoping that we're not dogging my machine too much. But we do have an operator installed from the IBM catalog in OpenShift. You install Transformation Advisor one way or the other, and then you access it through your browser. In order to then get the insights from Transformation Advisor, you have to take that data collector that you can get from Transformation Advisor itself, take that to your on-premise environment, and run it against your workloads. It's a script, runs locally, doesn't cause any changes to your system, collects up information about your applications, about their configuration, their technology needs, and how the functionality of the application is enabled through the configuration, and sends that back up to TA. If you don't have connectivity between those environments, it's okay. TA creates a zip file. The data collector creates a zip file in that environment. You can take that zip file and upload it and take it to wherever you have access to your browser and upload it to TA. Then the analysis happens within TA, where we connect up all of your configuration and your API needs, make the assessments of what remediations might be necessary, to move. Maybe you have an older version of WebSphere that you're running. You're going to have to upgrade your version of WebSphere. We call that our technical debt. Takes all that into account. If you're moving from WebSphere to Liberty, then it'll take into account if there are any API changes, the specification levels have changed, and then we'll give you as well developer effort sizings of the work that's needed in order to remediate those technology issues. And that's something that Cindy's going to demonstrate after I show you TA of what the developer does in order to do those remediations. And that developer sizing is based on our experience in the field with client engagements of being able to resolve exactly those same issues. And so we have a real nice way of helping you weigh what will it take to go from one runtime to the other and how much developer effort it will take. And then, as I mentioned, we create migration artifacts, the configuration, the Docker file, and the YAML to work together with the Liberty operator, which Graham was talking about. And I did put in the chat, we have an expert TV channel that goes into all kinds of issues and subject areas related to modernization. I do invite you to join us there. We have demonstrations there of TA, of mono to micro, of WAMT, and we discussed some of the Liberty operator recently. So I encourage you to take a look there. So let me show you TA. This is TA. It's running on my system, script enabled, pulled all the images, running it here locally. And importantly, one of the things that commonly is asked is, why would I want to give you the information? First of all, this information is yours, stays with you. It's a part of your transformation. It doesn't get shared with anyone else. But in addition, the information that is collected is about the technology needs of your applications. And the configuration around them, we don't save sensitive data as a part of TA. It is available in the binary scanner, which is a technology that TA builds upon. You can, in your own on-premise environment, save sensitive data, but we don't do that as a part of Transformation Advisor's data collection by default. And we don't know anything about the content of the data your application manages or messages. We don't look at your logs or any of that. So it's really a technology guidance and being able to accelerate your modernization. So the first thing with Transformation Advisor, and I do encourage you to go get it. As I mentioned, it's ibm.biz/cloudTA. You just click on Try Transformation Advisor Local. And we also wanted to call attention to have new documentation that's a part of ibm.com/docs. So you can find us there. So the first thing is you have a workspace, which is just for you to be able to organize your collection of data. And I have some. As I mentioned, you have the data. You can get the data collector. The way that you do that is when you create a collection, which is mapping to, I have to go get some data, pull it in. The first thing that you do, if your system loves working at home, will then allow you to download the data collector here. So this is where your download is. And you download the version of the collector that is applicable to the runtime that you're going to analyze. So we analyze all of the runtimes where WebSphere runs. And the reason it's important is we also then will change the instructions that are available for you here to be applicable to, that wasn't much, let me try Windows. I download that, which will bog my system. Let me see if I can go back. Live demos, gotta love them. The instructions on this page will show you the commands that are necessary when you execute them. So let me go back and see if I can get my system truly bogged down. Once you get your data collector, run that. Hope your system isn't downloading a million things like I just did. And then you will upload, it'll upload directly. So as a part of the data collection, you can do your upload of a zip, which I did. And then you can see here, I have a variety of collections that I like to use as a demonstration to show you the relationships. I have a WebSphere collection and an MQ collection. And what I have in my view here is that inventory of the applications that were found. And I have an option for my targets. I can go to Liberty. I can compare as well to go to WebSphere Traditional if I want to go to WebSphere Traditional and containers. And then I can also show comparing and contrasting between them. I can show all the compatible WebSphere runtimes, and then I can see the data about them. If you see that little caret here, if there are carets here, it means that we found relationships between runtimes, that collections that you had. So if I expand that, I'll see that in this case, my application used some shared library jar files. And what we have found is that either environments use shared libraries extensively or they don't use them at all. If you use them as a part of your collection, we will do an analysis of the shared libraries. And hugely valuable there is that if you're familiar with shared libraries and their configuration, you configure the shared library once and you can put lots and lots of jar files in. What we do with Transformation Advisor is we found just the jar files that your application pulled out of and would need in order to execute. And the reason that's important is containerized deployments require you to have within your image everything that your application needs. That's going to therefore mean that it needs to have the libraries it's dependent upon and had in its existing runtime environment. As well as shared library dependencies, if you have also, you can get this information whether or not you've done a collection, but if you collect MQ and WebSphere together, we will then tie together the applications that are configured to use your queue managers as well. So let me talk to you about the data that is here, and I'll use a collection that Cindy is going to use in her demo of actually making these changes in the environment. As I mentioned, you get the inventory of your applications, and we're coming. And we make an assessment that is called your complexity rating. And there are three potential complexity ratings: simple, moderate, and complex. And they're for an at-a-glance understanding of some pretty significant pieces of information. Simple means that that workload, not all of the workloads, but the ones that are identified simple, can be moved from their origin, which in this case was WebSphere ND, to their target without any code changes required. So there's no remediation that's required. All the technology needs are satisfied in that runtime exactly as that application is written. Nothing that you have to remediate within the code. Moderate means that there are source code changes that will be required in order to run successfully in that target environment. And then I'll show you how we do, but we show you what those are and the remediations for them. And this is where your developer cost comes into play. And then complex means that this is a very technology needy application with respect to this replatforming. And you're going to have to do some re-architecture in order to accomplish your movement. And you'll notice here there's Open Liberty and WebSphere Liberty for some of these applications. And the reason that is true is that Open Liberty started with the web profile specification and then went on to EE7 and beyond. WebSphere Liberty includes a few features that are not in Open Liberty that are the EE6 specifications. And for some of those, the work to resolve the issues is substantial, and you can make a choice of whether you wanted to go to Open Liberty or WebSphere Liberty. And as you can see, the Customer Order Services app, there's a significant difference. 2.5 days to go to WebSphere Liberty because I can use those older features from EE6, or I can just take the leap and make the changes and go to Open Liberty. If you're using microprofile and some of the more modern specification features, you'll want to be in Open Liberty because of that EE7 specification level, not because WebSphere Liberty and Open Liberty have different implementations of those, but because we have given you a recommendation that the features that we've included that you will depend on in WebSphere Liberty are not compatible with some of the microprofile features. So let's go in and look at these. Let me talk about the issues. The red issues, red triangle, we enumerate are issues that have to be resolved, probably programming level API changes that have to be resolved before you build and deploy in your runtime environment. And so those are things you must do. The yellow square are issues that may affect your application, and your architect and developer will have to make that assessment because there might be a behavior change in the specification that your application doesn't depend upon. Then you don't have a change to make. If there was that behavior change, you might need to make that change. So it's an issue that might affect you. And one of the pieces of guidance we've had from our garage folks who've been doing lots and lots of these modernizations is that's a good thing for you to address in testing. So make your immediate changes first, which Cindy will help you in doing in her demo, and then test around the potential issues that we've identified. And then the green issues are things you need to be aware of. Again, I mentioned developer costs, and I want to call out here, you can organize your applications, ears and war files into what we call a business application for commonality, and we'll roll up your developer estimates, and you can view your migration plan. Before I do that, I'll click into our details view for a given application. And what you'll see when we get to the details view is we, in essence, include the information from that line of Transformation Advisor's recommendations view, give you information about your application. And here you can go to do both of those business application and migration plans. We summarize why we came up with the complexity that we did, that there were some issues that required code changes, and there's a summary here of them. And then we allow you to dig a little bit further into some of those details that are significant. You can see that the green items are often about cloud deployments that you have dependencies on, don't require you to change your code, but you have some things that in the cloud you might have to address. And so we include some information about them and where in your application that happened. And then we have 3 reports that are generated for every application. Your technology report shows you, let me open that up, and since things take time, I'll open all 3 of these reports for us. Your technology report is one that will show all of the additions of WebSphere, WebSphere Liberty, Open Liberty, and that list on the left-hand side that shows you the technology needs are particular to this application, and so we show which runtimes can support you. In this case, this application across the board is green checks, but in some of our applications, you'll see that there are needs that are not available in some of these runtime versions, and so you'll want to take that into account, and it's reflected in Transformation Advisor's reports for you. The inventory report is a report that shows you the construction of the ear or WAR file that is deployed, and it gives details that are very, very helpful, especially when you're getting to the point of repackaging your application and understanding the packaging of your application and things that you'll want to take into account as you move into another runtime environment. So you can see here, we do call out any issues that we found, and also what has been found within your application. So truly a case of what's inside this EAR or WAR file. And then your detailed migration analysis is lots and lots of information that shows you line by line the issues that we found in your application in order to go to your target runtime. And then for each of them, so here you can see we have help that explains what the justification for saying that there needs to be a change made, and where in your application we detected this issue. So those runtime reports are very, very helpful for your architects and your developers when they're addressing what their modernization steps need to be. So let me then go into the last part of Transformation Advisor, which is that accelerator concept. And we call that the migration plan. And as this thing is churning, let me emphasize that the Transformation Advisor server, reason that it's churning here is that we constantly update Transformation Advisor. And as we can, we will apply new enhancements and to our recommendations, even if your collection was a little bit older. There are lots of opportunities. I suggest absolutely always be using the latest data collector and the latest Transformation Advisor, because we are constantly updating both of those. But if you do have a collection that is older, you can use it with your existing Transformation Advisor. And to the point that we're able, we will create more and more applicable artifacts and insights for you. And for example, we now, as a part of Transformation Advisor, will create the server XML. And what that contains is the list of features that this particular application will need in its runtime environment. And that's sometimes a stumbling block. I know that Graham showed how to do native Liberty development, but the movement from WebSphere or any other Java EE runtime to Liberty of an existing application, we can give you that leg up by saying we've identified these features are necessary to support the technology needs of this application. And Liberty is a composable server, as Graham mentioned, that we want it to only have the features that this application needs. And in containers, absolutely important. You don't want to put the whole kitchen sink in your container. You want just what your application needs. So the server XML identifies the features as a part of server XML, and also the configuration around those features. So we can pull out, one of the things that is very difficult is to identify what is the effective configuration for a given application when you have a WebSphere ND cell that has hundreds of nodes and servers and thousands of applications. We have reduced that down to the effective configuration for this one application. Take into things at the cell and the node and the server and the cluster, and the application scope, pull that in and pull that into your server XML. The POM XML is, especially in the case of shared libraries, will help you build your EAR or WAR file. The Docker file is continually, like I mentioned, we are using the best practices for constructing a Liberty image, much like Graham had mentioned, of being able to create and pull in and install the features into your Liberty image that are necessary for this application, package that into a container image, and then the application CR is the YAML file that allows for the deployment of this application deployed into Liberty to be deployed using the Liberty operator. And then, as I mentioned, the expert TV session, and I know that there is as well a think session that is addressing the Liberty operator that Arthur and Leo are presenting, so I would highly recommend that. So you can see in Kubernetes how you're able to manage the life cycle of this application and do some of the common things for what are considered day 2 operations. Logging changes, being able to collect a dump of the runtime environment, all of the things that our WebSphere administrators are used to doing in ND. So take a look for that one if you can. And then you can as well download all of this into your browser system, or you can send all of this into Git, or we can set you up as a starter, so a little bit of an accelerator for your application developers to have a location to be able to start working on this application. So let me show you the contents of that migration file. Let's see. I just downloaded that just now. And as you can see, and I can show you right here in the preview, I have a complete tree of the environment of my application, and that way I can get started more quickly. And my server XML, I think I might need to open that in the text editor. My server XML, as I mentioned, has the features that are required by this application and all of the configuration that came out of WebSphere. And there's one really nice thing that we have started doing, which is we have created, even if you have not enabled this in WebSphere, we have created variables to represent values that are very commonly, configuration values that are very commonly changing from environment to environment. So you are able to create this server, configure this server, have the values in it, and this becomes a part of your container image. You can then use these config values to, as you go from development to test to production, to be able to inject your configuration outside of your container and be able to use that image. And Liam and I had a session on our Expert TV channel that went into that, so I highly recommend you take a look at that. It's really a fantastic accelerator for cloud deployment. And then, as I mentioned, the Docker file as well, that the Docker file is constructed for this, for this particular application. We pull an OpenJDK, we pull the Open Liberty kernel, so the very smallest image you can, and then we do a run of features.sh, which will pull down and install only the features that this application needs, and then configure your server with any of the items that you need. As well, you can install and use this Docker file as a part of a service, which Graham was mentioning, being able to do just the levels of fixes that you require. You can service this container image. So that is a real quick overview of Transformation Advisor. Cindy, I think, will now go in and talk about what you do once you've made your decisions in order to affect